What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode on my channel. As always, I'm Jay, and today is another lovely film discussion. This time we are covering the Indiana Jones films for the upcoming fifth entry, Dial of Destiny. And today I am joined by my friend Devin, my friend Nolan, and the newcomer to the channel, Steven, aka Oldrengaming. Give a big shout out and welcome for Steven.
Thank you.
Now, I do appreciate it. And the funny thing is, of course, we have to do this, Steven, because it just lends itself to more, opportunity here. But you are a newbie to the franchise. You haven't actually sat down and watched any of them all the way through until this monumental achievement in YouTube history, right?
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding. But no, I appreciate it, and guys, appreciate you all for joining me. So again, we're just gonna go through the films, all four of the films that obviously released prior, give our kind of likes, dislikes, ranking, and kind of give our expectations for Dial of Destiny. So you guys ready?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
Dun, 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 Best intro ever.
Best intro ever. 100%. 100%. And I'm gonna loop that.
Oh god. I was tempted to go into the Superman theme.
And then I'm gonna have to go.
You gotta layer it though.
All right, guys. So we're gonna kick things off with the first entry, Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I think retroactively they named Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think
it came out, yes. After it came out, originally it was Raiders of the Lost Ark.
And that's the worst thing that Steven Spielberg did as far as going back and changing something as far as the movie goes.
I don't like that.
Luckily, George Lucas did not get his stinking paws on these movies, even though he wrote them. So, I mean, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first big screen adventure, which takes us across the globe as we see Indiana Jones, played by Harrison Ford, a professor of archaeology who is very hands-on. He's actually tasked with this mission to find the Ark of the Covenant, essentially. He's accompanied by his former lover, the feisty Marion Ravenwood, played by Karen Allen, smoke show from the 80s for sure. Indy tries to stay one step ahead of his rival, Renee Belloc, and of course, this is special for me, played by Paul Freeman, aka Ivan Ooze.
That's a hilarious call out. I didn't realize that.
Yes, and that's like the big thing is like I watched that. I'm like I never connected the dots because of how great the prosthetics were for his face and stuff in Power Rangers, and this rival archaeologist Renee Belloc is actually leading a group of Nazis. Boo! Boo!
Yes.
In the hopes that they can usurp the mysterious powers of the Ark, which could spell certain doom for mankind. This high-flying first entry became the highest-grossing film of 1981, beating the likes of Superman 2. It would spawn 4 sequels, a TV show, and numerous video games. So, yeah.
Was there a cartoon? Was there a cartoon as well? I could have sworn there was
something.
Indiana Jones.
There might have been. There might have been. I mean, what property in the 80s did not have a cartoon? I mean, even like
Rambo,
70s.
Rambo,
RoboCop. I mean,
Right.
hyper violent things getting child's cartoons for Saturday morning. I mean,
Chuck
it's
Norris.
the greatest thing ever, right?
Chuck Norris.
Right. So honestly, second greatest Lucasfilm franchise. Obviously, it was done with Paramount, not Fox. I mean, I don't think that's far-fetched to say. And the thing is the film concept was developed by George Lucas at around the same time as Star Wars. And it was also inspired of the movie serials that he used to watch growing up. You had your sci-fi Flash Gordon stuff, and then he had like your archaeological adventure ones that he had. Obviously, he put this one on the back burner because Star Wars was getting made, more successful, yada, yada, yada. And apparently the original concept was to be more in line with James Bond, sort of, apparently. And I guess at the time it was supposed to be Indiana Smith was his name or some shit like that. And that's how he actually convinced Steven Spielberg, his friend, to be the director, because Steven Spielberg was like talking with him. I guess they were making sandcastles on a beach, supposedly, is what I heard. And he's like, yeah, I want to make direct a James Bond film. And then he's like, no, direct my film instead.
Now that you say that, there's definitely elements of James Bond to it, especially with the silhouette. The silhouette, that iconic sort of a thing. So yeah, you can see that, especially the way that he fights too. Those early James Bond films, Connery was more of a brawler than a fighter, and Indiana's definitely a brawler.
And it's funny how Sean Connery would come later, as we will find out and discuss, being his daddy as well too.
Junior.
Yes, love it.
Don't
love
call
it,
me
love
that.
it, love it. It's Indiana.
Ironically, also the name of George Lucas's dog, is that right?
Yes, exactly, and that's something that they ended up doing in a later entry there too, which was nice. If we go to the casting and everything like that, Harrison Ford as Dr. Indiana Jones, one word, icon. How do we feel about him as Indy?
I would say it's impossible to picture anybody else because it was before our time.
Almost.
So Nolan and Steven, you guys are the resident old heads on here. So how would you have felt if Tom Selleck was Indiana Jones as he was originally supposed to be?
Oh, that's hard. That's hard.
Magnum PI was a badass character, man.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. So
yep.
Tom Selleck's a Chad, man. I mean, what are you gonna say?
He is. It almost feels like when Pierce Brosnan was supposed to be Bond, but then he got pulled back into Remington Steele, though, because I think a similar thing happened. So Bond and Indiana Jones kind of have similar kind of weird things happening surrounding their castings. And also, I mean, for all you Disney buffs out there, Chip and Dale are based off of Indy and Magnum PI. I don't know that I would have been able to adjust or really kind of believe him as an archaeologist. I don't feel like he's an archaeologist type. Like
Tom Selleck?
Explorer, sure. Archaeologist type, not so much.
Have you ever seen him as a cowboy?
Yes. Many times in pictures, not actually watching Quigley Down Under or anything
never
like
seen
that.
Quigley Down Under is fantastic. So if in like Elseworld or like the multiverse, Tom Selleck is Indiana Jones, would kind of it's the no, because that it wouldn't work.
He's definitely got the brawler kind of fighter, like action adventurer on that for sure. But like when he'd have to like wear glasses and be in teaching class, I don't think I would. He would be a PE teacher at most.
Especially that mustache wouldn't go either. That's like his.
Well,
I don't know. That fedora and that mustache would be pretty badass. Come on.
Well, and I think I heard that in one of the Magnum PI episodes, they actually parodied Indiana Jones where he was doing something too. I heard. So that's awesome. Definitely kind of fun how they play it on that. Karen Allen, Marion Ravenwood.
I need one of the pieces your father collected.
Like I said, she's
the best.
She was peak in the 80s. I remember the first time I saw her was actually in Scrooged. I thought she was very funny, but this movie does her very, very well justice. So not your typical damsel in distress for the most part of the movie. She does get captured and whatnot, but she's definitely a fighter. She can definitely hold her own, and she can drink dudes under the table, which I don't know if I should be turned on or scared of that. But I mean,
What year did this movie come out? I can't remember.
1981.
1981. Okay. So to kind of parallel this, right? What year did The Mummy come out?
You're talking about the Arnold Vosloo and Brendan Fraser one, right?
Yeah.
Let me see.
99.
Yeah.
99.
99 had a lot of great movies come out. Like,
because I was going to compare this character that we're talking about right now to Rachel Weisz's character. They're very similar in a way. They're pretty similar. So she's like the Rachel Weisz of the 90s of the 80s. I'm sorry.
Yeah. True. I can absolutely see that kind of comparison for sure. Definitely amazing starlets, gorgeous women, very much take care of business on their own terms. Believable relationship in history, I think, with Indy as they played it. Like, I totally bought in that they were exes, and they kind of had like, kind of like she had an axe to grind with him because he just decided he was just going to be doing his own archaeological thing, and he's just going to leave her and not really again, typical zagging when you're not even finding the zig or whatever, kind of that knee-jerk reaction, and nothing's provoked it because he feels he knows what's best and it's not. And obviously, as we would later find out, they had unfinished business.
Right. But he also played her too. So in the first couple of minutes, in the first like 20 minutes of Indiana Jones, he's kind of a scoundrel. He's kind of Han Solo of the 1930s. You know what I mean? Right. And then then there's a character shift later on.
Yeah.
Throughout the rest of the movie. But yeah, I mean, even like his face kind of in dark, in the darkness, using his shadow powers. So what I mean? He's like, kind of intimidating her to like take this thing and give me the thing that I'm here for. Or I'm gonna, you know what I mean? So
she's resisting those powers very well because she turns them away. Unfortunately, she should have just given it to him instead of the next people that come in. and everything at that point in time. Moving on to Paul Freeman as Renee Belloc. I mean, can you get more rival greedy vibes? Like, this guy's always one-upping like Indiana Jones. The whole movie, you're like, oh, this guy's gonna get it. I want this guy to get it so badly.
Definitely. This cast is probably the best chemistry out of all the movies, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite one, the movie, but it's these actors have excellent chemistry. Like, you really feel the rivalry with Belloc. Karen Allen steals every scene she's in.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this honestly, she's the reason why I like this movie at all.
Hey man, sometimes it's just that one presence that you got in there. Speaking of presences, John Rhys Davies as Sala.
Fantastic.
He's the best.
Short, small dose, but like lovable, fun, energetic presence, and fan fave of the series. And he would make a return in the third one, of course. Also, first appearance of Alfred Molina in the intro of the film, right? And
what is he? I missed this. What is this?
He's right at the beginning.
Throw me the rope. Throw me the idol.
Yeah, and then 3 seconds.
You're jogging my memory. Yeah. That's right. That's right.
He had all the tarantulas on his back and stuff too. I was like, wow.
Yes,
that's foreshadowing.
It would have been funny if he. It would have been funny if he dropped the idol. Butterfingers.
Right. Hey man, it's wild to seeing these people make random appearances at like their first time acting or like in a movie or whatever, right? So it was definitely wild to see him. And tell me that intro wasn't like awesome. Like, freaking, they go through it. You're not even seeing Indy's face for like 10 minutes or whatever. Finally we see it, and then all of a sudden they get past like the crossing, he gets there, and then of course, because that's just his luck, it doesn't take, it's too much, it's too heavy or whatever it is, it sets off the trap, and he's just gonna rush through when he was meticulously avoiding the spots where the freaking darts and stuff were coming out, and then he's just running full tilt.
That's what happens when you pour out too little sand. Which was obviously what he was doing, and I'm like, oh, all right, cool.
Has anyone ever actually looked at the way that the idol is? It's pretty fucked up in my
the eyeballs are disgusting.
Oh, not the baby coming out of the area is disgusting.
I didn't even notice.
It's a fertility idol. It's a fertility. I noticed that. I never noticed this. It's a fertility idol, and the thing is that
the eyes.
It's literally a woman birthing a kid at the bottom.
Oh my god, I have a picture of it. That's disturbing. Thank you. I'm gonna have nightmares tonight. Wow. It looks like she's sitting on it.
Exactly.
I'm telling you, man. So now look at that, and then look at dead eyes, just dead, just staring off at.
Well, she's obviously mid push, not to sound insensitive, but she's like.
I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, after a horrible 1 a.m. Taco Bell experience, I'd have dead eyes too.
Awesome.
Oh my god. Oh, this is we're on the important stuff in these discussions, these retrospectives,
Poop is always fun.
So yeah, it was a great intro, and it kind of sets the tone for Indy's luck, as it would be in the series as it follows him. Obviously he gets through, the natives get him, and then all of a sudden here's Belloc just taking it. He's like, well, I can't remember exactly the line, but he's like, and this is why I always beat you, Indiana. Like, he just takes it and he just walks right off, and he kind of like holds it up almost like he's viewed as kind of like holding that sacred thing, obviously. So he was probably telling the natives that he's there to restore peace or balance or some bullshit like that. I don't know.
So
I think he was telling him. I think he was telling the natives that Indiana was there to steal it from them.
Mm-hmm. That's a good call. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a weird take on this scene.
Okay. Let's hear it.
You're gonna laugh at me, but I got total Scrooge McDuck versus what's his rival?
Oh yeah. Hey, you ever notice how the DuckTales text looks like Indiana Jones text from the old show?
Yeah.
Run that.
Kind of. Yeah. Absolutely.
Like it,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Totally.
Hey man, it is what it is. So it borrows, it does all that stuff, and makes perfect sense. So after that unsuccessful thing, we run into him being in the classroom, and talk about hot for teacher. This girl could be any more obvious blinking her eyes.
Chamber and the grave goods that were found in another in the area. Give us
no payoff. Not even acknowledgement.
Yeah, I mean he looks real quick. He's like,
what? Did I see that?
You know, he has his scruples though, so I give major props for that.
Did you notice that 90% of the class were young, impressionable females?
Of course, it's the 80s.
Wait
it's
a minute.
the 80s, my
edit
friend.
That line out. Edit that line out. We're totally gonna get canceled now.
Probably, but that's all right. That's
Real
all right.
quick,
young, intelligent,
listen,
independent.
You have anonymity right now, Noel. You're not even showing your face on this.
So anytime he's Dr. Jones is literally, and I'm incorrect in this, but I feel like this is the only time Harrison Ford is actually acting when he's doing these scenes with the glasses on. Anytime, and he does a great job as Indy, obviously, but like, I feel like he's just being Harrison Ford, which is cool. But like, this is the only times where he's actually acting. I feel like,
he's like very like, okay, class, make sure you read this, and this, you know,
or even just discussing with his colleague after, you know, he's sitting always in the hall next to the door, interrupting class every movie.
Of course, I mean, all the time, always.
I kind of feel like Dr. Jones is his Clark Kent, you know.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
I think Superman's gonna have like some type of thing to do with every single episode we do now after we've done that roundtable discussion for sure. But I mean, it's I mean, synergy, man.
He's the original superhero, so I mean,
right?
To do.
So if we're moving quickly, obviously we have a lot of films to cover. The next big highlight for me was like the bar fight in Nepal, which again, Marion's out drinking that guy. They're having the talk, and then all of a sudden, the scuffle happens. They're trying to get the ambulance, obviously. And I mean, dude, how about those punch sounds, man?
Dude,
like the best punches ever are
every time I heard these punch sound effects, and they kept them in every movie. I'm like, dude, seriously?
Like, and
it sounds like you're beating like a rack of meat.
Well, supposedly it's leather jackets being hit with a baseball bat, right?
They do, yeah.
And I'm just like, goodness, I'm all for it. I think that's my favorite punch sound in any film, though. Like for real, I love that.
Oh man,
and you know the Wilhelm scream.
Always. So many Star Wars sound effects. There's so many Star Wars sound effects in these movies. It's hilarious. Another thing too, real quick, the soundtrack on this, obviously John Williams is amazing, but this is the only movie in the series of movies that sounds exactly like Star Wars.
It kind of does. It kind of
like
does.
anytime it's like a scene with Karen Allen, it's literally the Princess Leia theme, and then he changes it mid score.
Right
at the end, it literally. So anyway,
well, I mean, it is shortly thereafter. I mean, it's 3 years after Episode 4, Star Wars.
Yeah. It's the first one.
You know, the first one, the real first one. I can't stand that. Like my generation getting the prequels kind of threw everything off. Like
totally.
Just call it, but I mean, I don't know. Whatever. It is what it is. All I'm saying is the despecialized editions are the goats. Cairo was fun. Cairo was fun because they're just roaming the streets. Get this freaking weird Nazi monkey that they didn't know about, just ratting them out. You meet Sallah again, cool as a cucumber. Dude's funny, awesome, so lovable. He's like a big teddy bear, you know, with his presence. Fake out for Marion's death, which obviously was huge, and we kind of get hints of Indy's, I guess, drinking problem. I guess supposedly he has a drinking problem, which I guess they're really going to lean on in this new one.
Oh God!
Fast forward, amongst other things, by the way, let's fast forward to the next big thing that I think is when they find the Ark itself. Like when he actually sneaks in with Salah's help for the dig site, he puts the ambulance up, the whole thing lights up. It's just like that scene in The Mummy where they get all the mirrors together and everything lights up.
Real quick, we skipped the best scene in the whole movie when the dude he's trying to chase after Marion, and the guy with the scimitar is doing his little move, and he just says like, screw you, and just shoots him.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
It's literally the only scene I reacted to in the entire movie. I'm like, even though it's been memed to death, that's the best.
Yeah.
I just found out a fun fact about that, actually. So apparently there was a fight scene that was supposed to happen, and Harrison Ford had the flu. And that's why he's like, screw this, and did that scene. I left it in, apparently. I don't know if it's folklore or not, but.
Well, hey,
somebody said it was probably food poisoning or that. Too.
Something like that. Yeah.
They being
I found that interesting.
On location across seas,
right.
He probably had the ice or something like that, or had something that wasn't cooked all the way.
But that encapsulates Indy's like demeanor throughout the movie. It's just like,
see, those are those happy accidents that like Bob Ross talks about. It's like, you know, you just paint it with a weird stroke, but then that sticks to the character because that's exactly what happens to him in a couple of other things. But also, oddly enough, it happens in like another great scene in this movie, right? So like going fast forward, obviously we find out Marion's alive. She gets thrown in the pit with Indy. We get clued into his phobia of snakes, which is hilarious, by the way. He's just scared to death of snakes, of all things. They get out and then they run to like the airfield and stuff, and they're fighting and trying to get into the plane at first, but then the plane's just spinning and he's fighting this big buff dude, and the propeller comes and just chucks him.
The body language in this scene is hilarious. When he's climbing on the plane and he's like, all right, and he comes down and he knows he's gonna get his ass kicked, and he takes it anyway, and like you said, he's trying to dodge him.
Oh yeah.
But I get sorry, I have weird references, so I'm gonna have a lot of these. I got total Armstrong from Full Metal Alchemist vibes from this dude that he's fighting.
Oh yeah. 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 Yeah, that mustache was in his family for 7 generations.
All right, so there's some meandering going on in these movies, and let's be honest. The next big scene is where after the whole submarine bullshit. I mean, although this is a nice scene where he talks about where it hurts, and then she's like, "Where does it hurt? Where doesn't it hurt?" or whatever. He's like, "Here."
Yeah.
And here.
Oh.
And here.
This is so 80s. Like, it hurts me. I'm like, it hurts me to my core. It's so bad.
That goes back to the. I mean, it's a snapshot in time, but also I feel like it's still a great blend of action, adventure, and then humor and romance. And then, of course, when he's about to get busy, he falls right asleep because of how exhausted he is. Although I thought it was fucking hilarious how when she was looking at the mirror and pushed it, he just got smashed right in the face too.
What'd you say?
So yeah, the finale happens. He's threatening to destroy the Ark, which you're full of shit, Indy. We know we're gonna call your bluff on that. So he gets tied up, and then all this mystical supernatural shit happens. Don't look at Marion. All the beams, sort of like a Ghostbuster thing, happen where it's a nice face, and then
and then Zool was coming.
Yes.
Right. Not any indicator, not any point in time where, at least that I remember, it gives you a clue not to look at anything.
What I always thought was like from a biblical aspect, right? I'm like, how did they screw this up? Like, so one of the things, they were carrying the Ark on the back of a camel at one point, weren't they? Wasn't it on an animal's back? So how did they get it up there? So in the Bible, you can't even touch it. If you touch it, you'll die like instantaneously. And somebody like reaches up and grabs it to stabilize it from falling over. And I'm like, well, why is that guy not dead?
They take liberties. I mean, there's all room for artistic liberty and interpretation, right?
I mean, clearly the
Holy Grail too. I mean,
right.
But the creepy Nazi, the one with
the one with the glasses was
he's
clearly
great.
How about when he took his hanger out and we thought it was going to be a whip or something, and it was just literally a hanger?
The relief on their faces was hysterical. Like that was great timing there.
Oh, and talk about a rushed ending, but also like full stop, like went hard on that ending. Like they almost got an X rating because of the dude's head exploding. They had to add a wall of fire in front of it for it to like get disguised. But like the melting and the heads crushing, I was like, holy shit.
The skin melting was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Dude, shout out to 80s practical effects. Like it looks bad, but it's really there.
So as far as this goes, what do we think of Raiders? I think it was a solid first entry. We get introduced to this new character, fun action adventure, and apparently made a big splash at the box office because it made all the money. Beating Superman 2 was
that's a low bar though.
Not at the time.
Come on.
Even as a kid, I'm like, wow, this is pretty weak.
So you saw this one in the theaters then? You saw this one in theaters? I
did.
Okay. All right.
Oh, wow.
All right. Well,
Nice.
Having that experience, then I guess we can definitely take your word for it and put it as like more legitimate because you actually saw it in the theaters. So respect on that. Even if I don't agree with that, respect.
Oh no, I was talking about Superman 2.
Oh, Superman 2?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, Superman 2 was a little bit like upon rewatch, even though I used to wear that tape out as a kid, nope. Especially on 4K, a lot of the reshoots are so apparent now. It's unbelievable. As you can tell, guys, we're getting into the next entry of Indiana Jones, which came out in 1984, and that is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. After a shootout in Shanghai, say that 5 times fast, leads to a daring escape from Chinese gangsters, Indiana Jones finds himself stranded in India, where he and his companions, Willie Scott, Kate Capshaw, the future Mrs. Spielberg, a club singer, and in short round, Ke Kwan, a future Goonie and Oscar winner, his sidekick, must help the village of Mayapur, whose sacred stone has been stolen, and their children abducted and forced into slavery. To find the stone and free the children, Indy and company must face the evil Thuggy. Teach me how to thuggy. Teach me how to thuggy. I don't know. Thuggy cult led by the dark priest Mola Ram. That's such a badass name too.
Sounds like a Mega Man villain.
Or become one of the many sacrifices in the Temple of Doom. At the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know, they got really nuts. You know, like Michael Keaton, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. But they really went for it. They had heads exploding, melting, beams of light, people getting zapped, whatever it is. So
dogs sleeping together.
Pandemonium, mass hysteria. But like right out the gate on this movie, it's more violent, it's more gory, and it's got a PG tag, which is hilarious when you think about it. Some pretty messed up imagery, some cringe moments in there, as we'll get to. I mean, right out the gate in the intro scene, we're getting a guy getting skewered with a flaming hot like shish kebab thing. We get people's hearts ripped out. We're getting sacrifices. You know, it's like Mortal Kombat going on.
Fatality.
But also, the fun fact about this was the first one that I ever watched. It was always on Sci-Fi Channel. So like every time it was on, I'd just be like, and then of course when we get to, like I mentioned, certain scenes that are cringeworthy, I was just scarred for life for a while, for sure. And you know, it serves as a prequel apparently too. It happened before the events of Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I find very interesting. I think it's because of certain elements didn't make it into the film, if I heard correctly or read up correctly. But yeah, I think that this was an interesting entry for sure. New cast: Kate Capshaw as Willie Scott.
Oh God, I.
Biggest trouble with her is the noise.
I wanted to turn the movie off every time she spoke. I'm sorry.
Indy!
She is the worst sidekick in all the movies, and that includes Shia LaBeouf. Like, dude, she is the absolute worst. Oh my God!
But she was very much more comic relief, which kind of works. And
comic,
you know, well, but the best addition to this, I think, was Ke Kwan as Short Round. I thought
he's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No time for love, Dr. Jones.
now we're really getting canceled.
I step on fortune cookies.
Oh God.
And I have to give a shout out to the guy who played Mola, like probably the most outright scariest villain of the entire franchise.
Yeah, he was
in
good.
my opinion. Dude was awesome. I mean, and for God's sake, the guy literally rips people's hearts out and they burst into flames. Highlights, like we were kind of alluding to before, another stellar intro, I think, and more James Bond-esque. He comes
this
down.
This scene is amazing. Yeah. Like this. I'm sorry. I'm probably the only one that thinks this. The first movie is bottom of the barrel for me. minus one movie that we'll get to later. But like, this is the best movie in the franchise, no question, hands down.
I have to be honest. I agree.
This is every part of this makes Indy look amazing. I played all the Uncharted games. This is obviously heavily borrowed from Indiana Jones. Nathan Drake character is literally newer Indiana Jones.
Modern.
Yeah, it's amazing. This scene is so whimsical and fun, like kicking the diamond around and the antidote. I mean, it's
that's
applaud
this. That's that 1940s pulp,
dude.
30s pulp.
It's funny though, because like it starts with a fucking musical number. Like the darkest movie starts with a upbeat musical number with tap dancing and
it's
shit.
Clever though, because it doesn't have you sit through damn credits, and it has you just to look at something while it's going on and wondering what the hell's going on, and it sets up the intro of the scene. Yeah. It sets up the intro of the scene perfectly, and now it makes sense. We're in a club, and
I wish we had saw more of Lao She though. I liked him.
He was
I thought
good.
He should have came back.
Yeah,
for real.
Totally.
You know, and that guy was in Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee, and then he was in Game of Death for a hot minute.
That's right. Yeah.
Who is he in Enter the Dragon?
In Enter the Dragon, he's the master from the deleted scene.
Oh, right.
Or it cuts to him when he's fighting Sammo Hung at the beginning with the white beard and shit. And then in Game of Death, he's like painting his face because he's about to do the whole thing. I guess like the Chinese opera or whatever it is. But yeah, so that whole thing was awesome because, you know, it leads into another trap that gets sprung because he's like, nice try, Lao She, and it's got his name on the fucking side of the plane.
I laughed so hard when I saw the plane. That was great. Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
In the few minutes leading up to that, Dan Aykroyd is their tour guide guy.
Yeah. Yes, I pointed that out too. Right? My light just fell. Yep, it's Dan Aykroyd is the tour guide. Absolutely.
There might be a slight inconvenience as you will be riding on a cargo full of live poultry.
Such a random cameo.
Right. And then they literally get stranded. They have to jump out the plane, and like literally one of the biggest bullshit moments in the entire like series.
Parachutes.
That comes later in another movie.
That does, but I'm saying this is where it starts.
It's pretty bad.
Also, by the way, to preface this, if any hate is to be thrown at this movie, it's because Kathleen Kennedy was the associate producer on this movie.
Oh my god!
Why did you invoke her name?
I saw her name in the credits. I'm like, oh my god!
Right,
the bane of my existence right now.
This was the junior associate producer like credit or whatever it was. She wasn't really having her claws in it.
She's been screwing stuff up this long.
Man, you invoked her name. Now look what you did.
Oh, it's cursed.
Right? Yeah, so they literally get out the plane, expand on the freaking thing. They go down the freaking slopes of the Himalayas, and they all go off a cliff and into the drink, and then they float down the river. I'm like, yeah, that's totally believable.
That scene when they're falling into the water. Those dummies.
This is some of the worst dummy work in this movie.
Oh my god.
For real.
It's the 80s though.
You see that, how many times did you see that raft start to tilt like it was going to flip over and then it didn't? Miraculous.
Let's cut away real quick.
Yep. Real quick, actually, in the previous scene when they're running away to the airport, the Club Obi-Wan.
Club Obi-Wan?
Yes. They run out of Club Obi-Wan. No, it literally says on the face, yeah. So I wrote that down. I'm like, oh, that's a nice cameo there.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I can't even believe
awesome.
that. That's crazy. So yeah, they end up flowing downstream, and at this point, I'm like, there's a lot of downtime in this movie. Like, this is a good stretch of downtime when they're floating. They get all the exposition stuff.
Right.
Okay, cool. We're getting explained. All right, I get it. It's part of the story. Okay, where's the fucking excitement happening? Right. So after they get all the stuff explained to them, you know, it's really picks up at the palace scene, you know, when they're having dinner, which was like the first cringe scene. Snake, cut open the snake, like eels and shit coming out, or baby snakes or whatever. Then the dude across from them is like sucking down freaking beetle
scarabs.
Scarabs and shit. He's like goat's eye soup. And then the chilled monkey brains was it for me. I was just like, okay, I gotta.
That's an actual thing too. So that was the only one I was like, okay, I get this one. But the other ones is like, this is just for gross out humor. Yeah.
So the disgusting dinner, great scene, and then it leads into the best scene, which is the booby statue, as I've dubbed it.
That's hilarious.
So obviously, there's a little bit of a build up here. You know, there's some sexual tension.
This is probably the best scene she was in, honestly.
Yeah. And then he comes rushing in after nearly dying. He's like, I'm right here. And then it leads into this is the big scene for me because I fucking hate bugs. I hate bugs.
Oh, these bug scenes are the worst.
Oh god. And then
disgusting.
They get into the trap. He steps on something. No, just go against the wall. And then it sets off the spikes. I'm like, and then she comes running in. Right. And then obviously she's like lighting up. She doesn't even know about the bugs. And then as soon as she turned her hand, I was like, oh god, no, please God, no. I don't know if it was like a mantis or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then she has to reach into the freaking thing for the lever. I'm getting anxiety just thinking about it. It's terrible.
And then her dumbass goes in and sits on the stone and closes the door.
It's her fault, not mine. It's her fault.
Oh my god.
And then of course they have to cut away because the door looked like it was slamming down on the hat faster than what it was. So they still cut it pretty close as far as that goes.
And thus begins the I have to get my hat scenes in all the movies after this.
True. So, I got to give this movie credit, though, because after this, they end up going into the caverns. They discover the cult. I think that this cult and the whole premise of it, where it's not just Nazis, I really like when they don't lean on the Nazis. I feel like the Nazis are just too much of a plot device. As we see, you do one thing without Nazis, you got to go back to another Nazi set. You do one thing without Nazis, you got to go back to the Nazis, because that's what Indiana Jones is known for. But I thought, like, if you wanted to set up terror, like 100%, that's what they did right here. Dude's getting his heart ripped out. He's getting sacrificed in the lava pit. His heart burns. I mean, God, and you're seeing all these guys essentially, as I believe now, after we find out what happens with Indy and stuff, they've all drank the Kool-Aid. They're all mind controlled, whatever it is. Short Round sent to the labor mines, and then Willie is being set up for sacrifice. Indy turns heel. And I think that this is really the biggest heart moment for me. And again, this is why Short Round is awesome, because he escapes, he crawls up the thing, and then he goes and he tries to stop and break everything up. And then he tries to get, Indy to snap out of it. And then he grabs the torch and he's like, Indy, I love you. And then he burns him. Like, obviously it's silly, but I'm like, oh, right in the feels. Like, and after that happens, he comes to his senses and he looks down at him and he gives him the wink. He's like,
the kid,
so like I'm getting a little teared up just thinking about it.
Honestly, he makes Indy have a lot of heart.
Yeah,
because he's very gruff in the first movie. He's just all a business, and this gives him a little more likability. Not that he's not likable, but for a broader audience, I'd say
100%. And the thing is that this compared to another relationship of a son figure is more believable. I don't know what they were thinking in not bringing back Short Round and making him kind of like come back at some capacity. But I mean, hey, it is what it is.
Maybe foreshadowing.
It could happen in the new one.
Nope.
Spoilers. You killed me here.
Yeah, but the funny thing is that he won the Oscar, so that would have gave them some good buzz and would have given them some more money, because no one wants to go and see the new Indiana Jones. Sorry, we're getting ahead of ourselves here.
I keep getting the mixed reviews of it's incredible or it's incredibly terrible.
Exactly.
What modern movies have mixed reviews? Get out of here.
Right. So wrapping up this movie, we get taken on, they free the children. They have a little voodoo fight thing going on, which was awesome. And kind of in like that fashion of the propeller killing the big guy. The big guy in this gets smashed by the rock smasher. And I'm like, ugh, PG? Yes. Okay, fine. It's 80s PG, hard PG. So then they get on the nice big freaking minecart scene. Resident Evil 4, anybody? Flood happens, they escape it somehow, they run, and then they get caught on the bridge. And then because Indy's a madman, he just cuts the bridge. Indy flips the tables on Molaram. He invokes Shiva's name. You betrayed Shiva. I thought the kids would have been back at the village sooner than them, though, since they all ran, right? That was a little weird for me. But everything ends fine, and it looks like Indy and Willie are going to have romance, but clearly that's not the case, because it's a prequel that we know he ends up kind of back in a little romantic stint with, Marion in that point. Personally, this is the best.
No question.
100%.
No,
First one
no
I
question.
watched, they went for it. It's darker. It's kind of like the Empire of the series. And they do some great stuff. And the thing that hurts me after finding out some research is that Steven Spielberg was apologetic for this one. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like it because he's like, I felt like none of me was in this movie. I felt like it was too dark. It was too this. It was too that. And I'm just like, dude, shut up, please. Just stop. And the thing of it is that because of this and like Gremlins, which were PG movies and they had a lot of like questionable violence, right? The MPAA at the time finally made PG-13. And from there on out, we had that extra little bit. And now everyone aims for that PG-13, just below R, just above PG, to give it a cool factor.
Was Raiders PG?
Yes. Yep.
Somebody gets shot in the head in that movie.
80s are gonna 80s, man. You guys had some wild shit.
Indy shoots someone in the head.
Literally,
in that movie.
Dead center in the head.
Yeah, the guy with the scimitar, right? Doesn't he?
No,
it's
that guy in the
someone's
chest.
Driving, right?
One of the Nazi dudes is driving, and Indy straight up blasts him through the window.
Well, you know why? It's because he was a Nazi. So
it's totally fine.
That's why.
Fair.
That's why, apparently. So, but Gen X was wild movies for ratings and stuff like that. So, Noel's giving a thumbs up too. You just can't see it. All right. Moving onward to the third entry in the franchise, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, released in 1989. There was another great movie that came out in 1989.
Field of Dreams.
Okay.
Yes.
Just kidding.
So Indiana Jones's third adventure. This time he's actually drawn into the search for the Holy Grail after discovering that his father has gone missing, and his father is played greatly, in my opinion, and I'm sure you guys might agree, by Sean. Oh, whoa, hold up a second. We're gonna address that when we get to the casting session, okay? While retracing his father's steps, he discovers he's been abducted by Nazis. Big surprise! Also trying to obtain the Holy Grail to use its mysterious powers. Here's a hint. It has something to do with immortality. Now it's up to Indy to rescue his father and stop the Nazis from taking the Grail and using it for their own nefarious purposes, which would be to live long. I mean, World War II is going to be won by the Allies, but they're just going to live long because they want to live long. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Chronologically, for me, in my coming up and coming, how do you say that word?
Coming uppins? What?
That's the one. That's the one. I'm tired. So this was the second movie for me. So I didn't see the first one until I was probably in my early teens.
Really?
So yeah. So I caught the middle of the second movie when I was young, and then this movie came out because my dad loved these movies. He'd always be watching them, and I'd get roped into watching them with him, and I wanted to just watch Transformers.
Despite this film being the first official PG-13 Indiana Jones, it's kind of weak on the violence, I think.
Right.
It's in it, and it very much is a bookend to the first one. And again, like I mentioned before, Steven Spielberg was very apologetic about the last movie. He said number 3 was an apology for number 2. And the thing is the tone is set very early on when it showcases young Indy as a Boy Scout, played briefly by River Phoenix.
R.I.P.
In the intro, like, we find out why he's afraid of snakes, why he has a whip. We find out why he has a chin scar because of the whip. And then we are somehow shown that he's inspired by this grave robber who he dresses exactly fucking like, and he literally gives him his hat. You lost today, kid, but that doesn't mean you have to like it. And I'm like, this dude's literally doing a fucking Harrison Ford impression just to like, I'm like, this is meta before it was meta, but it's not fun. It's kind of corny, to be honest.
It is, but I ate it up, man. Another great intro. Like, I know it's cringy at the points, and it's like, oh, of course, this is how he learns to use the whip, and oh, of course, he falls in the train full of snakes, and like, oh, like, but like, it's okay. It was a little ham-fisted, but I was like, this is fun.
Yeah,
this is River Phoenix, right? Where we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay. Because I didn't get to review this movie, so I'm going 100% on memory right now, and it's a little dicey.
Yeah. And then, I mean, then he pushes the hat down, and then when he lifts it up, it's modern day Indy. He's still going after the same fucking guy who looks the same fucking age with that little red whatever flower or whatever, rose or whatever it is in his lapel, if I remember. Carnation. Yeah, so that intro is kind of whack, man, but it's 80s, it's corny, like, I guess it kind of works. But it's meta before meta. So we flash forward, so he's finally got the Cross of Coronado, his grail, oddly enough. His grail. And he goes back to the university, and then he teaches a class, and like, that's the one thing about going on all these adventures. He's a terrible teacher, and he doesn't grade papers or any of that shit on time. So he's getting swamped by all these fucking.
Bro, he is like the worst office ever. It's like in a broom closet. Another call out from Uncharted that was definitely stolen from Uncharted 4. Well, vice versa.
Homage.
They
get away with it when it's called homages. What happens is he actually gets an invite from Julian Glover, who is like this like philanthropist guy, whatever you want to call it. Oh, I had someone that was searching for the Holy Grail. I'd like you to come in because he's gone missing. Well, with all due respect, I am the wrong Jones to do this. Yes, I know. The missing man is your father. That's kind of a weird way to just get thrown into the whole search for the Grail. But I mean, whatever. It's flimsy, but it'll work for the movie, right? It gives us an excuse to go globetrotting with some hot blonde chick who is definitely not a Nazi.
Definitely not. You always gonna be suspect of a woman that just throws herself at you like that.
Amber Heard.
Yes. Amber Heard.
So some minor returns. Obviously, Marcus Brody comes back. Salah's back. Julian Glover, who plays Walter Donovan, who is like the new Belloc, but not really, but kind of is. Totally is. Also leading Nazis to the mystical whatnot MacGuffin. And Sean Connery as Dr. Henry Jones Sr., which, yes, I said greatest casting in this film. But what's your take on this, Stephen? I'm really interested to hear this now.
Connery's great. I felt like the movie was trying to set him up because he was very very much a pacifist in this whole movie, and I thought like the payoff would have been him helping Indy out, but he doesn't really do that. So it's like I felt like he was just chewing up scenery, and it was funny, but like even my girlfriend's like, dude, he's like the worst part of this movie. I'm like,
what? How dare she say that? Yeah, I'm gonna need to message Kathy separately here.
I mean, it's not that drastic, but like I just felt like there's no payoff to like his goofiness. Another thing I didn't get a payoff of is the damn briefcase he had with him. He was so protective of it, and there was like no payoff to that. I'm like, what? I was in the whole movie. I'm like, what? There's something in there. There's gonna be something that happens. Nope,
nothing. Now that I'm thinking about it, he literally had that shit every single step.
Yeah, right? And he was very protective of it and wanted to get it back. And exactly, yeah.
Where's my briefcase? But I think that him being Indy's dad too informed Indy's background too really well.
Oh, 100%.
The history about like when his mother passed and how they were as a father and son. They had like this great arc from the beginning of the movie to the end. And I love the scene where he's talking about, when was the last time we had a drink? I had a milkshake and you were just drinking and we didn't really talk. I was like, oh yeah. And he's like, but if you were a normal father, you would understand that. And it's like,
I was the best father. I told you to be independent.
Like, did I tell you to wash up? Did I tell you to? And I raised you with enough sensibilities to be independent. And he's like, yeah, but we never talked about anything, Dad. And he's like, oh, okay. What would you like to talk about? Highlights in this movie. More globetrotting. We're back to the globetrotting. We're back to the map, doing the red line thing, whatever it is.
Every movie has this.
It does, but I feel like we're actually going to more locations as opposed to
there is more
movie,
trips,
right?
Yep. There's only one map scene in each movie except for this one.
Yes. Boat chase, which was preceded by the whole X marks the spot thing, which Indy specifically said X does not mark the spot.
He did.
X literally fucking marks the spot. So again, meta. I think this movie was meta before meta was the thing.
Also during the scene, him flirting with the Nazi chick, I wanted to rip my eyeballs off. I'm like, dude, this is so cringe. Like, who talks like this? How desperate are you, Indiana Jones? Like, let's go, man.
Castle Escape was great. I thought that was hilarious. It was a fun introduction. He gets bashed on. Well, first of all, he comes in like he's a tapestry guy or whatever, being all Scottish in the worst Scottish accent. I'm like, really? And then he gets.
Let me get your hat.
Yeah. He gets bashed on the head from his dad. Oh, I'll never forgive myself. This is a Ming Dynasty vase or whatever it was. He's like, oh,
yes.
What a relief.
I had that in my notes that they're finally reconnecting. That scene was hilarious. Like it was super well done. Yeah.
Small scene, but Marcus being captured in Egypt was kind of funny. It was almost hilarious. Like it was kind of like a reverse of like Raiders. Like at first Saul is like, run, papers. Yes, I have papers. I got the one today. Run. And he's like, dude, fucking like listen to what he's saying. And then the thing is like Indy literally talked him up all that beginning scene. He knows 12 different languages. He can blend in, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, the Zeppelin escape with the plane and the crash.
So good.
But then incidentally they end up taking down one of the planes with the seagulls at the end of that, which I thought was fun. The tank fight when they're right about to get to the Grail where Indy gets stuck somehow. I'm like, how the hell is that logistically even possible?
Dude, I was like, this is impossible. He's stuck, but he managed to get the guy, the Nazi was trying to get him, and then magically he can just climb up now.
It reminded me of all those infomercials where people are literally incompetent from doing the most basic shit.
I dropped my chips.
I liked the finale. I thought that the challenges were really well done and thought out.
Very good.
They made sense in their prolificness. And then when he gets to the night, I thought that was kind of a cool little scene.
You have chosen wisely.
So the Holy Grail, you think it's going to be this like ostentatious, like jeweled thing. Clearly not. The guy literally dies five seconds after having his sip. And then he's like, Jesus was a carpenter. This is a carpenter. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a little cool little interpretation right
cool.
there. Him bringing it out and then him healing his dad by pouring it on the wound and in his mouth. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. It's kind of cool. And then of course, like literally, do not take it past the seal. And what does she fucking do? We can take it. Let's go. Oh! You know, like
I can reach it.
And then 5 seconds right after that, Indy does the same freaking thing.
I can almost reach it, Dad.
Indiana. Let it go. Let it go.
That was Sean Connery's growth moment right there.
He chose wisely. That's what happened.
Before we depart the Last Crusade, some funny moments that I ended up seeing. Obviously, you know, I might have mentioned some of these, or they might have been mentioned. Hitler's autograph. I find a lot of humor in that.
That was hilarious.
Like,
oh my god!
Like,
and that scene was very uncomfortable, but that gag made it
right.
Okay, you know what I mean?
Just
oh
let
my
it
god.
some room to breathe. And I'm like, oh my god,
Yep.
They literally have Hitler's autograph now. Again, Sala telling Marcus to run. The X never marks the spot. The next man conversation talking about them both being with Elsa.
Sharing your adventures is an interesting experience.
It's not always shared.
No, it's not two ships passing in the night, dude. Like, you like banged her and then your son banged her. That's like, no, that's like messed up.
X marks the spot, apparently.
I never missed my.
I thought, you know what? That reminds me of how in the beginning he's like, shoot her. She's a Nazi. What, Dad? Shoot her. She's a Nazi. And then he's like, he doesn't believe her. And then lo and behold, she's a Nazi. You should have listened to me. She was a Nazi. Naming Indiana after the dog, like we mentioned before, that was again meta because literally the same dog, which was named Indiana, inspired Chewbacca and Indiana Jones or Indiana Smith in the precursor kind of things right there.
Did you miss the other Star Wars character in the movie?
Well, I mean, Julian, what's his face is
Glover.
Yeah,
General Veers.
Another gag that was cool was the no ticket on the blimp.
Yep.
And now that people are like, oh,
yep, that was good. That was classic. And yeah, they ride off into the sunset in one of the most perfect trilogy endings, although that would be undone. Overall, how does this one stack up? Do you think this was a good entry, or do you think it was more of the same? I personally feel it was good, but it was very samey for the first one.
This is number 2 for me out of the 4.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I'd probably say it's number 3 for me, to be honest. Number 3. Because I do enjoy Raiders and what the foundation or whatever. But what about you, Devin? You know, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I thought it was enjoyable. I think it's probably one of the safer entries. You know what I mean? I feel like it's definitely light on its feet, especially with the inclusion of his dad. So I thought it was a nice addition to the middle tone, which was really intense and dark, and the first one, which was the establishment of the franchise. So. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I liked it.
So, like I said before, this was the second movie for me because it was literally the second movie that I ever saw in the Indiana Jones trilogy.
Yep.
So I have nostalgic feels for this one. I barely, at the time, remembered Temple of Doom. I remember pieces of it, the heart, the monkey's brains, and the eyeball soup. But that was really about it.
Yeah.
Until I just watched it recently. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this now. So yeah, the third one was more attention grabbing for me because I was older.
Gotcha.
The other one I didn't really care. It was kind of scary. I didn't really want any part of it.
So now, gentlemen, we are at Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which came out in 2008, and it is the penultimate sequel for the Indiana Jones franchise, with Dial of Destiny rather on the way, of course.
Anybody got any alcohol? Get this taste out of my mouth.
So this one came 19 years after the events of The Last Crusade in real life and in thematic, cinematic life, whatever you want to call it. Indiana Jones is back, this time discovering a mysterious skull with extraterrestrial properties. Dr. Jones must get it back to its point of origin in order to prevent Soviet agents from discovering its secrets, which could spell disaster for the world. Reuniting cast and crew from the film's past, this film went on to become another box office hit, ironically, and it co-stars Shia LaBeouf as Mutt.
What you gonna do, Shia LaBeouf?
The story was also written by David, is it Kep? who wrote the first Spider-Man, The Shadow, and even Jurassic Park, amongst other films.
Interesting.
So I thought that was very interesting, which doesn't really, I don't know what to make of it with the quality of this film, to be honest, after hearing that. The film opens starting off good enough at Area 51, which turns out to be the same warehouse which the Ark was stored.
Bum, bum, bum.
In a box that broke or fell while they're doing their shit.
Yeah, broke, yeah.
Indy and his friend Mac, who I don't even know, we don't know, and we just led to assume that they've been friends for a while and done so many jobs or whatever, are being forced by Soviet agents, so again, not Nazis, to bring them to a very specific item, which turns out to be an alien corpse, which they find by having gunpowder thrown in the air, which I thought that was kind of cool. Indy gets double-crossed and he escapes, and then somehow he ends up on this nuke test site where he has to lock himself in a lead-lined fridge to avoid...
He ended up in Call of Duty for some reason.
Right. Jumping the shark? Nah, hold my beer. I'm gonna nuke the fucking fridge. That's what I'm gonna do right now.
Hey, they looked at the sign, says lead lined. It's okay.
Totally, and he didn't stay locked in there. There wasn't any radiation exposure.
No, not at all.
But he did have to get his nuts scrubbed with push brooms apparently in the next scene. And then, like, I mean, it really picks up when he finds the skull. He reunites with Marion, finds out that Mutt is his son. Mutt is just a dirty greaser, which I love that kind of bar fight almost scene on the campus when they're running away from the other people. I thought that was pretty cool. And you know that Steven Spielberg was gearing up to do a remake of West Side Story with that, because, you know, which that turned out so well. And basically they think that they have to bring the skull back to its point of origin, which when they do, it turns out to be an alien spaceship which flies. And I'm like, okay, so Steven Spielberg is parodying himself in another parody of a movie that's parodying what came before, but he's also parodying his Close Encounters and ET shit and all this other stuff at the same time. So if I'm being honest, I don't think that this movie was egregiously terrible. I just feel like it was sterile. Like, the last one has the crime of being samey for the first one, but this one has the crime of being shot digitally, has like no grain, looks too clean, looks too polished, looks a little weird with the digital backgrounds, especially with the monkey swinging set and all this other shit.
Yeah, that was the worst scene in the whole movie.
Is Ford too old at this point?
This is the line, I think. There's parts, this is parts where it's believable. There's parts there's not. Dial of Destiny's going to really test that for us.
Well, we'll see how good the deep fake stuff is, because I've heard some things.
There's a shot of him kicking over some bookshelves, and it's a lumbering kick, and I'm like, oof.
That's probably the kick that broke his leg.
The scene in the trailer where he pops down below the table, and you're like, that looked weird. Like,
how about when he's riding on the horse and his head's like floating as he's like this?
I think there was like a CGI replacement there.
Yeah,
thanks, Disney.
Yeah, we'll see how it turns out. I mean, now you're locked in. Now you're curious about seeing Dial of Destiny now that you've done this marathon.
Yeah,
right?
Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. When I get back from my trip, I want to go see this damn movie.
Karen Allen coming back. It was a nice touch to see Marion again. I'm not going to lie. Was Mutt necessary?
I didn't mind, and I didn't hate Shia LaBeouf. It was a little ham-fisted.
Yeah.
It's some of his like aggression, but I get what they were going for. It just didn't land. It was obvious he was grooming him to be his partner. And I think as partners, they were pretty good. There was pretty good chemistry there, but yeah, I mean, you could see the sun thing coming a mile away.
Mac, Ray Winestone is good. He's a great actor. I mean, even in Black Widow, he was fine, but I mean, I don't know enough about Mac to really give. Listen, the better Mac for me was Mac in Predator. Mac! Kate Blanchett, Irina Spalko, Ukrainian, working with Soviet agents. Yeah, I think she was okay, but is she really psychic or not? That's the question for me. Does she really have psychic abilities, or is she bullshitting when she's like?
That was weird, and it started in the beginning of the movie, and they just left it.
Yeah, and I think she's like basically bullshit. Like, she's bullshitting. Right. She's like, "You are a hard man to read, Dr. Jones," and he's just like smirking because he knows that she's just full of shit. And then she's got a rapier, like a sword. Like, come on, man, seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a good thing Mutt learned how to fence when he was in school, right?
John Hurt as Oxley, just kind of, he's not really doing much, but he's still cool because it's John Hurt.
He could read the back of a cereal box and it would be amazing if he was still alive.
Yeah, rest in peace. Highlights in this movie, I mean,
the credits.
This one was totally produced by Kathleen Kennedy, though, too, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, she had credits in it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a land boat chase, like a like land to sea vehicle thing. There's ants. I just remembered actually. There's the ant scene,
yeah,
which
right.
was crazy. Kind of when they actually get to the tomb or wherever the aliens are. I think that was pretty cool. Them finding the skull was okay. It actually, you know what's funny about that? Ernie Reyes Jr. pops into the movie for like 5 minutes. He's the one blowing the darts.
I didn't see that.
And then the dart gets blown right back in his mouth.
Oh, okay.
Indy pops up and he's just like, he's like, oh! All right, guys. I mean, there's not much to say about this movie, honestly. I mean, it's my lowest ranked just because it has the misfortune of being the outlier, and you had a fine trilogy. And
without a doubt.
I mean, what's this one for you, Steve? Don't tell me you put this above Raiders. Don't tell me what.
Get out.
We're
not friends anymore.
Get out of this chat right now.
Only because like I judge these movies, like obviously being a newcomer to this stuff, on enjoyment level. And yes, the end of this movie is not very good. But leading up to those points, I really enjoyed it, minus the monkey swinging part. But
yep.
But Raiders was very bland for me, kind of like your opinion on Fellowship. It's like I just was like losing interest. Like literally, the only scene I like reacted to was him, Indy shooting the guy with the scimitar. Like,
was it a pacing thing?
Totally, it was. The pacing was really rough. I said to my girl, I was like, I'm surprised they had a sequel.
So that's the thing. Like back in the day, it was like top notch. It was like the shit, and it was highest grossing. It was an action adventure, right? And the pacing and everything was forgivable through those eyes and lenses for the most part for a lot of people.
That's how it was done back then.
It was like
that's how it was done, right?
Yeah.
A lot of movies of that era, I would fall asleep and like I've never watched the first Tron to completion because I fall asleep every time I watch it.
Dude, that's me for the Transformers movie. I'm sorry, but the original Transformers animated movie, I had to.
Bro, you are insane.
3-4 times when they get to the freaking planet and do the freaking that shit. Like
that's lame.
Fucking Monty Python dude doing the voice and shit of was it Wreck-Gar?
Wreck-Gar.
I was like, I can't
with turbo handling.
Yes,
like, dude, I fucking fell asleep so many times that I literally thought that Ultra Magnus actually died permanently. I didn't know that he got put back together. I was like,
we don't talk about that.
Cup and Hot Rod bought it. I can't deal with that right now.
So yeah, did the sci-fi angle work for this? Then I assume it did pretty much, right? No.
It's too far-fetched. Indiana Jones, even though it's weird and supernatural stuff happens, it's still grounded in reality somewhat. This is just I don't know. It seemed too modern for his era. Do you know what I mean?
So the other films were like World War II,
right?
And then this is post-nuclear, bomb and shit, I guess. So I guess they might have been drawing from like B movies of that era too, more sci-fi, less mystical, like maybe movies of old before kind of doing stuff. I feel like it
outer space.
Well, yeah, right. It kind of makes sense for me thematically that they would do that, but I mean, again, Indiana Jones isn't really sci-fi per se. He is more mystical. So them again backtracking after trying an experimental thing and then Dial of Destiny, even though it has sci-fi properties, it's a mystical item that he has to find,
right?
A mystical MacGuffin. So I mean, I guess, but I didn't mind it. Again, I like when they experiment for the most part. Again, I didn't think that this was a terrible movie, but it does rank the lowest for me out of all of them. But Temple of Doom is the all-time GOAT for me. They took great risk. It still made all the money. It fucking made PG-13 a thing.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's a win for me. And yeah, I just feel like the most imposing villain came out of there. Granted, Nazis are Nazis, but I mean, it's kind of played out. Kind of gets played out. Just saying. So
I mean, it's not hard to hate Nazis, so it's a safe villain.
It is for sure.
I watched it in the theater, and it's just one of those things where I felt like, I know it was set in a different time period after the nuclear bomb and all of that shit, but for me, it's like, it just felt like it was in present day. You know what I mean? Like it kind of threw me off.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like get into it, and I just felt like Indy was kind of a parody of himself at this point. You know what I mean? I was kind of like,
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, Shia was good. I mean, at that point, he was
trying
to be the leading man material. Kind of, the new kid on the block sort of thing.
He was on top of the world because that was when Transformers and stuff
Transformers
came
is
out
out. Yeah.
Yep. He did Even Stevens. He did that, and then
Eagle Eye.
Yep, I actually like that one.
I thought that was pretty decent. It was interesting, kind of what they did with that, and I thought he wasn't too bad in there. But yeah, so would you say this is the lowest ranked for you too?
Yeah, it's definitely in last place for me.
What's your order of the films?
Temple of Doom, Raiders, third one, and then this one.
Gotcha. Same for me.
Mm-hmm.
Noel, I mean, do you want to give your 2 cents on this?
Yeah, I might as well. I don't want to feel left out. I have a very small ego. It'll eat at me for the rest of the night. I won't sleep.
Yep.
So order of films. We'll go with order of films first, and then we'll get into the why because we only have a limited time. First movie for me, I'm going to go the opposite route because I always go against the grain. The first movie for me would be Raiders, because I like a pulpy, long film like that.
Yep.
I don't care about pacing. If the story is good, pacing doesn't mean anything to me. And then I'm going to go straight to The Last Crusade, because I like that idea. I think it's a great idea. And then I'm going to go Temple of Doom, even though it's very good. And I'm not going Temple of Doom because I think it's like the second to worst or whatever. It's just where it sat for me story wise. I didn't care that much, and even then that sounds harsh. It was just I like a 1930s 1940s pulp sort of thing, and that was obviously away from that. Even though it was more violent, it was more action. I like the other stories more. So yeah, the Crystal Skulls. So I worked for GameStop at the time, and a friend of mine is a director of independent film, very successful. And the movie came out. I was working with one of my other friends, and he came in, and he just had this look of defeat. Like you've had the worst stomach cramps ever, and you're ashamed of what happened in the privacy of your own home, and you're emerging into public still with this look of weakened defeat. And I said, so how was it? And he goes, spaceship flew away, and completely moved on from that conversation and didn't want to talk about it anymore. So I didn't believe him, but I also didn't want to watch the movie either based on that.
Yep.
And then literally it's been 10 years, maybe longer since that movie came out. Right?
Longer.
When did it come out?
Longer.
2008.
Okay. All right. So I finally sat down and watched it. And at the end, I sent him a text and I said, just watch Crystal Skull. Spaceship flew away. He texted me back and went, yep. So that's where that movie sits. I get why they did it. One of the things that happened in that time period was there was a lot of sci-fi alien discovery movies, alien invasion movies, based on that. Obviously, Transformers and Shia LaBeouf. It was set up like it was passing the torch to him, and then it never went to him.
Yep.
That scene was cute.
Right. Yeah, and then Marion and Indy get married, which
why?
That seems so forced, that whole thing.
Because that's what they did back in the day, and then
that's true.
That's not going to mean shit in the next one because they get divorced, and Mutt isn't even in it. So, spoilers.
Right. Oh shit.
So yeah, it was just one of those movies where I was just like, I don't get it. It is super clean. I get why it's super clean.
Yep.
It's a different era.
Yep.
Film is different.
Yep.
So if you're kind of looking at it in the aspect of a 1930s movie, or the way the 1930s movie was very grainy, and now we're kind of moving in towards the Cold War era. Film is a little bit better. Okay, I get it. And but yeah, it was just weak. Overall, it was just weak. It was
probably the most mid that you can get at this point in time, for sure.
And I don't blame the actors or anything. I just think I don't know. I can't really even blame the director. I think they all just kind of worked with what they had.
This is before Steven Spielberg went off the deep end as far as his quality. Like this is after Minority Report, which I felt was like his really greatest like original movie of the time, like in the 2000s.
After Super 8 too, right?
Super 8 was done with J.J. Abrams, though. J.J. Abrams directed that.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, this one Steven directed. This is the last one. Obviously, James Mangold's doing the new one. Which James Mangold, I think he's a great director. He's done Copland. He did the 3:10 to Yuma remake. He did Logan.
Yeah,
God,
great
this is
movie.
freaking great movie. So I mean, he's a great director, but just because you're a great director doesn't mean that you're gonna have the ability to pull off something that technically should have not really even happened. I mean, even this one shouldn't have happened with Crystal Skull because he was getting long in the tooth. Harrison Ford was getting long in the tooth. It was getting to be, I don't know. And that leads kind of into my thing about expectations for Dial of Destiny. I have no expectations, and I'm probably gonna go and see it maybe with my dad or something because he won't care. He's just, oh, it's a movie, it's whatever, you know.
Right.
Like, you know, even if it sucks in a fandom standpoint, he'd be like, yeah, it was all right, it was okay. And it's like, really, you like that movie? And I'll do that. He's just unfazed because he doesn't get the fandom and all that other shit. But how about all you guys? What do you guys have for expectations?
I'm excited to see Mads Mikkelsen. He's a great villain character. He's a Nazi apparently. So
again, got to go back to the Nazis.
Yeah, I mean, Mads is great in every. I haven't seen a movie that was bad.
Yeah,
with
he's
with
excellent.
Mads in it. He's incredible. I'd love to meet that guy. Just have a conversation with him once.
Yeah.
I mean, once James Mangold got announced as the director, I'm like, okay, all right, he's gonna have his own vision. It's not gonna be Spielberg. I guess he didn't want to get burnt out. But I mean, the trailers look pretty good. But I'm not gonna sit here and say it's anticipated for me or I'm like really excited for it. But I'll give it a shot. I mean, it can't be worse than Crystal Skull, so I'll have to see. I don't know.
Oh, it could be. Maybe it could be, but hopefully not. You know.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll throw a grain filter on it and make it look like it's you know, legit.
Yeah.
You know, film grain.
So what I don't understand about the trailers is it the young Harrison Ford is like past? I don't understand what's going on. Or is it the dial?
Time travel, dude.
So I think a good portion of the
right.
first part of the movie is actually in the past, where it's him deep faked, and then he's gonna do stuff, and he's gonna go back in the past with the dial again somehow. I think because Mads Mikkelsen is gonna grab it and go in the past.
He's in the flashback scenes too.
So
right.
And he said I've been searching for this all my life. I'm like, really,
Right.
Indy? Really, Indy? Really?
Yeah.
You sure about that? You sure about that? Across the Coronado? No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I don't know. I think that'll remain to be seen, but I think we definitely have no expectations. So since the bar is really low, it's bottomed out. And I mean, whatever happens, it's good. Cool. Great. Awesome. And then hopefully this is the last one, no matter what, though, because, you know, it's kind of like the last Dirty Harry movie. Probably should have stopped at the fourth one. So, all right, guys. Well, that's our discussion for the Indiana Jones film franchise thus far. Steven, thank you very much for joining me on this wonderful experiment. Thank you for watching the movies for the first time. Devin, Nolan, as always, it's a pleasure to have you guys on my channel. And who knows what we'll make of Dial of Destiny.